Sydney McLaughlin is the fastest woman in history, shattering records before the age of 25. She's done what no other woman has, breaking both the 52-second and 51-second barriers in the 400-meter hurdles. And yet, instead of celebrating her greatness, critics complain she's not entertaining enough. But when she finally clapped back, she left them speechless. Was she wrong? Or do people just love tearing down greatness? Sydney isn't just fast, she's historically fast. The numbers don't lie, and hers put her in a league of her own. Her performances in the 400-meter hurdles aren't just record-breaking, they're redefining what's possible in the sport. The 400-meter hurdles isn't just about raw speed. It requires precision, endurance, and perfect rhythm. And yet, Sydney makes it look effortless. Then came the Paris Olympics, where she didn't just win, she dominated. Clocking in at 50.37 seconds, she proved once again that she is on a completely different level. Her performances aren't just victories, they're statements. Despite her dominance, critics have been relentless. Some argue that she doesn't race enough. Others say she isn't entertaining or doesn't engage with the crowd. But let's get one thing straight. Sydney isn't here for the drama. She's here to win. One of the biggest complaints? She doesn't compete as often as fans want. Unlike some athletes who race multiple times a season, Sydney carefully selects her events. But there's a reason for that. She's not here for participation trophies. She's here to break records. If that means racing less to preserve her energy and peak performance, then that's exactly what she's going to do. Then there's the argument that she doesn't interact with the crowd enough. Some fans expect athletes to be showmen, to hype up the audience before a race, but that's not Sydney. She's locked in, focused, zoned in on victory. She doesn't need theatrics. She lets her speed do the talking. Expecting her to act any other way is like asking a concert pianist to juggle while playing Beethoven. It's completely unnecessary. And then there's the final critique, that she doesn't have a big personality on the track. The idea that a world-class athlete needs to be louder, more animated, or a performer is ridiculous. Male athletes who are quiet and focused never get the same criticism. Sydney doesn't need to put on a show. Her world records are the only statement she needs to make. Sydney has heard the noise for years, but when it finally reached a tipping point, she decided to shut it down once and for all. In an interview on Spill the Tea, she responded to the critics in the most direct way possible. "I get a lot of flack for not showing enough personality on the track, but it's because I'm trying to give y'all the best performances possible. Period. No sugarcoating, no excuses, just straight facts." The idea that she should somehow split her focus between breaking records and entertaining an audience is ridiculous. And she wasn't about to entertain it. And then came the ultimate mic drop moment. "Pick one. We can't have both, period. Thank you." That response left no room for debate. Either people accept that she's one of the most dominant athletes of all time, or they can keep complaining while she keeps collecting gold medals. Either way, she's not changing for anyone. Johnson, a track legend, wasn't about to sit back and let people question Sydney's commitment to the sport. Instead of letting the internet run wild with false narrative, he stepped in and dropped some hard facts that shut down the debate once and for all. Not only is she competing, but she's doing it at the highest level possible. She was the first athlete to sign with the Grand Slam Track League, committing to running 8 races per year against the best in the world. That's not the behavior of someone avoiding competition. That's the mindset of someone dedicated to excellence. Critics love comparing track and field to other professional sports, but the reality is different. Unlike basketball or football players who have long seasons with dozens of games, track athletes don't have to race every meet to prove their greatness. The best runners carefully plan their race schedules to maximize performance, avoid injury, and peak at the right time. Sydney is doing exactly that, and Michael Johnson, one of the greatest sprinters of all time, backed her up in public. Sydney isn't the type of athlete who thrives on drama. She doesn't go out of her way to engage in trash talk or try to build tension before races. She focuses on herself, her training, and her goals. If someone else is on the track competing against her, that's great. But she isn't looking over her shoulder worrying about what they're doing. Femke Bol is undeniably talented, but she hasn't been able to truly challenge Sydney on the big stage. McLaughlin-Lavrona's world record time of 50.37 seconds is untouchable for now. Fans and media outlets often push narratives to make competitions more exciting, even when the athletes involved don't see things that way. What makes this situation even funnier is that neither Sydney nor Femke has ever publicly shown any animosity toward each other. They both have tremendous respect for one another. If anything, Femke probably understands better than anyone just how hard it is to do what Sydney does. It's not a bitter rivalry, it's just two incredibly gifted athletes doing their best in their respective careers. And yet, critics still find something to complain about. But let's be real. People love to tear down greatness. We've seen it in every sport. The greatest athletes always face the harshest criticism. Serena Williams, LeBron James, Simone Biles. They've all had to deal with it. The higher you climb, the more people want to bring you down. But Sydney McLaughlin-Lavrone isn't paying attention to the noise. She's too busy running in a league of her own. And if that means breaking records while keeping a laser-sharp focus, then so be it. She doesn't need to be the loudest person in the room. She lets her performances do the talking. There's another reason why Sydney doesn't race as often as people want. Because she's strategic. Track and field isn't about running as many races as possible. It's about peaking at the right time. She isn't going to waste energy in low-stakes competitions. When she steps onto the track, she's there to dominate. Michael Johnson made that clear when he defended her. The Grand Slam Track League commitment she made isn't just about running. It's about running against the best in the world, multiple times a year. That's something very few athletes are willing to do. And yet, critics still question her dedication. But the truth is, Sydney has already done more for the sport than most athletes could dream of. She's pushed the limits of what's possible in the 400-meter hurdles, proving that what was once thought to be impossible is now within reach. She has changed the way people look at the event. At just 25 years old, she has already accomplished more than most track athletes do in their entire careers. And yet, she still has more to prove. The 2025 and 2028 Olympics could see her take on new challenges, perhaps even transitioning to other events. Some have speculated that she might try the open 400 meters or even the 200 meters. If she does, she could redefine what's possible for a sprinter-hurdler hybrid. Very few athletes have the ability to dominate multiple events, but if anyone can do it, it's Sydney. Sydney's journey is a testament to the power of resilience and focus. Many athletes let criticism and external noise get to them, but Sydney has remained laser-focused on what truly matters, her performance. She understands that the legacy she is building isn't about social media popularity or engaging with the crowd. It's about changing the sport. Her disciplined approach to training and racing is what separates her from the rest. Instead of chasing unnecessary attention, she channels her energy into refining her craft. That's why every time she steps on the track, she delivers performances that leave the world in awe. Some argue that she should race more often, but that argument ignores the fact that her approach has brought her record-breaking success. If she were to race every week just to satisfy public demand, she wouldn't be the same dominant athlete. Her strategy ensures that when she does compete, she is at her absolute peak. It's also worth noting that Sydney's influence extends beyond her own accomplishments. She is inspiring a new generation of young athletes, proving that success isn't about putting on a show, it's about perfecting your craft. Her ability to stay focused and let her talent speak for itself is a message to every young competitor that you don't need to change who you are to be great. Sydney's dominance in the 400-meter hurdles has already cemented her legacy, but she may not be done rewriting history. If she decides to take on other events like the 400-meter flat or even the 200-meter, she could redefine what's possible for track athletes. There is no limit to what she can achieve, and the world is eager to see what's next. At the end of the day, the criticism she faces won't change the fact that she is one of the greatest athletes of all time. She will continue to win, continue to break records, and continue to silence her doubters the only way she knows how, by dominating on the track. And whether people like her approach or not, they're going to have to accept it, because Sydney isn't changing for anyone. The only thing she's focused on is making history, one record-breaking performance at a time.